The story begins with an oil mining factory ship responsible for maintaining several underwater pipelines. Their job is to take care of the pipes that extract oil from the seabed. Suddenly, the crew receives an urgent message from the control room: one of the pipelines has started leaking, and oil is continuously spilling into the ocean. They must dive immediately and seal the leak before the oil becomes catastrophic for marine life or causes massive financial losses for the company. The issue is brought to Angel, a technician who has worked there for years. Angel and his senior staff begin discussing how to fix it, but the situation becomes more complicated when they learn that the strongest storm in the region is moving directly toward the leak site. No one on the team has ever worked at such extreme depths, and the storm's intensity is impossible to predict. Despite the danger, company officials pressure them to proceed. Angel has no choice but to prepare for the dive. He assembles an experienced team, including 2 coworkers, Harry and Mitch, who will assist with underwater repairs, and a communications expert named John, whose job is to maintain constant connection between the submarine and the main vessel. The team boards the boat and heads toward the rupture site. Inside, we learn that Harry is heavily drunk, even though drinking during a mission is strictly forbidden. Meanwhile, another crew member, Joss, is visibly anxious and calls his wife because he misses her deeply. The truth is that Jonas's wife was pregnant and due to deliver soon, which is why he was desperate to finish this mission and return home in time. He reassures his wife that it's only a matter of a few hours and he'll complete the task quickly and be back with her, but he has no idea how wrong he is. After several hours of travel, their ship finally reaches the designated spot. From here, the team will board a small submarine that will carry them deep into the ocean. Angel, Jonas, Harry, and Mitch climb inside, maintaining communication with the main ship for instructions. Harry and Mitch operate the submarine, guiding it toward the section of pipelines where the leak is suspected. Once they reach the ocean floor, the 3 suited up in their diving gear. Angel, Harry, and Mitch exit into the water while Jonas stays inside to handle communications with the main vessel. The 3 divers begin searching for the leak and quickly locate several damaged sections where oil is escaping. They start patching the ruptures to stop any further leakage. Meanwhile, Jonas is excited. He has never been on a mission at such extreme depths, and he's mesmerized by the strange and rare sea creatures he sees, many of which he had only heard about. He even looks at a photo of his pregnant wife, finding comfort in the thought of returning to her soon. What he doesn't know is how dangerously things are about to change. As the divers continue working, the submarine suddenly jerks violently. Jonas can't understand what just happened. The entire submarine is shaking as if something slammed into it. The vibrations are so intense that even the divers connected by tether lines can feel them. Angel quickly realizes this must be the massive storm finally reaching their location. They needed to finish their work quickly and get back to the surface. Jonas, stuck inside the submarine, was growing more anxious by the second, especially now that communication with the main ship had completely failed. Harry was terrified and wanted to return to the submarine immediately, but Angel couldn't afford to make that mistake. If they didn't complete the repair, the company would fire him. So Angel and Mitch pushed through, determined to seal every leak, and after a long struggle, they finally managed to fix the pipeline. They quickly returned to the submarine, trying to stabilize the situation, but still had no contact with the ship above. From the powerful ocean currents alone, they understood the massive storm was directly overhead. Everyone was panicking, especially Jonas. He couldn't die here. He had a wife waiting for him at home. Mitch kept trying to re-establish communication and eventually succeeded for a moment. He reported that the repairs were complete and requested instructions to surface immediately. As soon as he said that, the submarine began ascending, but something felt wrong. The violent jolts they experienced weren't normal. None of them had ever encountered this in any previous mission. Before they could figure out what was happening, the radio signal died completely, and the submarine, which had been rising, suddenly plummeted downward at high speed. Panic filled the cabin as the pressure around them increased dangerously fast. Everyone felt it, but Jonas was the most terrified. The others tried calming him down while hoping the sub wouldn't take any serious damage. If it failed, no one would be able to rescue them. After descending for a while, the submarine finally came to a stop. Still no contact from the surface. Mitch was frustrated and worried. Without communication, they couldn't risk getting out. Angel decided to go outside to inspect the submarine and check whether it had taken any damage. If there was any damage, Angel needed to fix it immediately. After inspecting the wires and electronic equipment around the submarine, he concluded that the sub itself wasn't damaged. Something else must have caused it to drop so violently. Angel continued investigating outside while the tension inside the submarine grew worse. Mitch, Harry, and Jonas began blaming the company, saying they should never have been sent out if the storm was this dangerous. Mitch confirmed that at least their heater was still working, so they wouldn't freeze for a while. Angel kept checking the cables responsible for pulling the submarine upward, and as he moved higher along the hull, he suddenly froze. Pieces of their main ship were falling past him into the depths. Debris from the vessel rained down through the water, confirming the terrifying truth: the storm had completely destroyed their ship. Everything had broken apart and sunk, including all communication equipment. When Angel reached the seafloor, he found multiple bodies of the crew members who had worked as technicians aboard the ship. Horrified, he rushed back into the submarine and told the others what he saw. Panic broke out as they realized there was no ship left and no one who could rescue them. They were trapped at the bottom of the ocean with only a few hours of oxygen remaining. Jonas, Harry, and Mitch were terrified, with no idea what to do next. They couldn't abandon the submarine and swim upward either, because the drastic pressure change, known as decompression, would almost certainly cause their internal organs to rupture, killing them instantly. This fear gripped the entire crew. Arguments erupted as they blamed each other and the company, furious that they were sent into such a deadly storm just so the company could save a bit of money, putting all their lives at risk. But Mitch, who was the most sensible among them, calmed everyone down and reminded them that arguing would only consume more oxygen, which was already limited. Instead, they needed to focus on figuring out how to get back to the surface alive. Angel suggested another idea: removing the heavy ballast weights attached to the submarine so it would become lighter and rise upward. But Mitch immediately rejected the plan, explaining how dangerous it could be. The submarine was designed specifically to withstand the extreme pressure at the ocean floor. Altering its weight or structure could cause it to collapse instantly, just like the tragic OceanGate submersible disaster from a few years ago, where the intense pressure crushed the entire vessel and killed every billionaire and businessman on board. That same fate could happen to them. Soon, they discovered that their oxygen cylinders had begun leaking, rapidly reducing the available air inside the submarine. Alarms blared, panic spread, and Jonas was the most affected as the situation worsened. Chaos erupted until the team managed to stop at least one cylinder from leaking any further. Still, their bad luck meant they now had even less time before the oxygen would run out completely, and once that happened, survival would be impossible. All they could do now was wait and hope someone would rescue them. As they sat in fear, their radio suddenly picked up a signal. Mitch began communicating immediately and learned that another ship was approaching their location. He explained everything, that they were trapped at the very bottom of the ocean and urgently needed help. Mitch had hoped it was an American vessel that would rescue them, but it turned out to be a private ship that refused to risk descending to such dangerous depths. They ignored Mitch's pleas and shut off their radio signal entirely. Their only chance at rescue vanished, leaving Mitch and the others stranded once again with no way out. At this point, even Mitch began losing hope. Fear was written across every worker's face. Each of them had a family, and with only a few hours of oxygen left, no rescue team would reach them in time. After a while, Mitch and Harry put on their diving suits and went outside. They needed to check whether the submarine had suffered any damage during the fall or if any new leaks had formed. They carefully inspected every component and secured anything that seemed loose. When Mitch climbed onto the top section of the submarine, he saw several heavy iron rods lying across it, likely debris from the main ship that had been destroyed in the storm. The rods were incredibly heavy, but Mitch tried lifting them anyway. After several attempts, he managed to shift one slightly, but it resulted in a severe injury that caused him to collapse unconscious. Harry now had the responsibility to save his partner and bring him back into the submarine. He tried, but Mitch's tether had become tangled in the wreckage, and Harry's hands were shaking so badly that he could barely help himself, let alone Mitch. If they delayed any longer, Mitch would die. Angel immediately jumped into the water, grabbed Mitch, and dragged him back into the submarine. Harry followed, and together they managed to revive Mitch, though his condition remained critical. The moment he regained consciousness, Mitch started yelling at Harry. They had all warned him not to drink, but Harry refused to let go of his habit. Everyone glared at Harry with anger. His carelessness had nearly cost another life. Harry admitted his mistake and explained that living away from his family had led him into this bad habit, which he was struggling to break. Still, he promised that from now on, he wouldn't touch alcohol again. Counting their remaining supply, they realized they had only a few hours of oxygen left. Once that ran out, the pressure inside the submarine would drop, and survival would no longer be possible. At this point, survival seemed almost impossible. If you ever end up in a situation like this, where a submarine is deep underwater, completely shut down, and oxygen is rapidly running out, escaping becomes the only option. To do that, it's crucial to understand the submarine's structure. Every submarine has two important components. First, the advanced diving suits that allow humans to withstand extreme underwater pressure, Second, the escape trunk, a chamber located at the top of the submarine that equalizes pressure before anyone exits. To escape safely, you must enter the escape trunk wearing a pressure-resistant suit. You can't open the hatch immediately. You must understand that the deeper you go in the ocean, the higher the pressure becomes. If you step straight out into the water without pressure normalization, the intense force will destroy your body instantly. That's why the escape trunk slowly fills with water, gradually increasing the pressure inside until it matches the pressure outside. Only then can you open the hatch and swim out. Even after escaping, you must ascend very slowly. Swimming up too fast can cause decompression injuries, which occur when your body experiences an abrupt pressure change. Instead, you must follow a curved, controlled ascent path, where the pressure gradually decreases. Eventually, you will reach the surface, but you still shouldn't rush out of the water. You must remain floating for several minutes until your body fully adapts to the normal pressure again. Following these steps can help you survive. But Mitch and his team were in far worse shape. The situation was already chaotic, and the arguments had drained everyone mentally. When the others moved to the next section of the submarine, they realized Harry was missing. Harry was searched for everywhere, but soon they learned through the radio that he had put on his suit and gone outside. Harry had already told everyone that since their main ship had been completely destroyed and their submarine's oxygen was running out, there might be extra oxygen cylinders in the wreckage. Those cylinders would have sunk to the bottom, and he believed they needed to find them. Mitch had warned him not to go because the pressure outside could be extremely dangerous, but Harry didn't listen to anyone. He left without permission to search for the cylinders. The team panicked. Harry was acting on his own, putting his life at extreme risk. For a while, Harry searched all around but found nothing. Suddenly, he struggled to breathe and couldn't think clearly. The rest of the team was on the other side of the submarine, too far to help him immediately. Harry grew weaker, collapsing as his oxygen faded. Inside the sub, Mitch and the others debated whether they should go out to help him. But if they did, Harry's oxygen would be gone, and the rescuers' oxygen would also be consumed, putting everyone at greater risk. Angel then suggested a harsh solution: they should shut off Harry's oxygen. Harry had disobeyed orders and put everyone in danger, and saving him now might be impossible. At the very least, after he died, they could use his oxygen cylinder to keep the rest of the team alive. Mitch was devastated. He didn't want to sacrifice his teammate this way. He refused to do it. But then they discovered that Jonas, the one who had been the most terrified, had already cut off Harry's oxygen. Someone else had taken the decision out of their hands. Harry's breathing slowly faded, and he died alone on the ocean floor. But the three men inside the submarine had no idea that right in front of Harry's body lay a massive oxygen cylinder, the very cylinder he had been searching for. Harry died without ever realizing he had found it. Inside the sub, the remaining crew felt their fate was already sealed. No rescue was coming, they had no oxygen cylinders left, and they certainly couldn't ascend to the surface with the little air they had. Jonas, terrified, whispered that he might never see his newborn son. They all feared they would die here, leaving their families alone forever. Seeing Jonas crumble in fear, Mitch comforted him. Mitch confessed that he too hadn't seen his family in years. He poured all his time into work and neglected the people he loved, and now, facing death, he regretted every moment he lost. He promised himself that if he survived, he would quit this job and return to his family for good. But their chances were dropping fast as the oxygen level continued to fall. Soon, the sub's heater, responsible for keeping their body temperature normal, began to fail as well. The cold crept in, and their survival window shrank further. Still, Jonas tried to help. He created a makeshift heating streamer using a small amount of oxygen, which provided warmth but burned through their air supply even faster. It was not sustainable. Realizing the gravity of their fate, Mitch, being the bravest among them, broke down and wrote a heartfelt letter to his family, apologizing for never giving them time. One by one, Angel and Jonas also wrote their final letters. They sealed the notes in plastic bags, hoping that if a rescue team eventually found the wreck, their families would at least receive their last words. Then, unexpectedly, a miracle happened. Their radio picked up a weak signal. Mitch grabbed it instantly. A voice on the other end announced that they were from the Navy. The private ship that heard their earlier call had reported their situation, and now a Navy rescue team was headed toward them. But they admitted it would take hours to find the exact location of the submarine. They had no precise tracking data and would need time to search. Mitch panicked. He told them they had only minutes of oxygen left. There was no way they could survive for several hours. While Mitch sat in despair, Angel reminded him that they couldn't just sit and wait to die. Their last hope was to go out and search for the oxygen cylinders that had fallen from the ship's wreckage. That, he said, was their only remaining chance. Mitch feared the risk, but it was either that, or certain death. Even then, Angel had to be given permission, and he suited up and left the submarine to search for the oxygen cylinder. After speaking with the Navy, the team had regained a small sense of hope. Angel pushed himself to swim as far as he could, scanning the ocean floor for any sign of the cylinders. Wreckage from the ship was scattered everywhere, making the search difficult. But soon, he spotted a large oxygen tank, and right beside it lay Harry's lifeless body. Ignoring the emotional shock, Angel focused on reaching the cylinder. The problem was that the safety tether connecting him to the submarine had reached its full length, preventing him from going any farther. His oxygen was running low, and if this continued, he wouldn't be able to retrieve the cylinder. Angel reported everything to Mitch, who made the risky decision to release Angel's safety rope. As soon as Mitch unlocked it, Angel confirmed with a green signal and moved forward. But he had entered a region of the ocean with drastically different pressure levels, the same pressure that had killed Harry. Angel's suit began to strain, communication weakened, and Mitch sensed something was wrong. Worried, Mitch put on his suit and dove in after him. When Mitch reached the cylinder, he found Angel unconscious, his oxygen nearly depleted. Mitch summoned every bit of strength he had to lift Angel while also pushing the heavy cylinder toward the submarine. The struggle was intense, but eventually he managed to get both Angel and the cylinder back inside. Jonas helped pull them in. With Angel not breathing and completely limp, they immediately began performing CPR, refusing to give up. After several exhausting rounds, both men stepped aside, believing Angel was gone. But then Jonas noticed Angel's hand move slightly. There was still life in him. They immediately resumed CPR, determined to bring him back. After countless attempts, Angel finally regained consciousness, and they immediately supplied him with oxygen. The three men were relieved. At least now they had a large cylinder that could give them several more hours of air. They quickly contacted the Navy again and updated them on their condition. The Navy officers explained that it might take more than a few hours to reach them because they still didn't know the submarine's exact location, and the scattered wreckage in the water made detection even harder. To help the Navy locate them faster, the officers instructed them to release the submarine's emergency signaling device to the surface. This was crucial but extremely risky, because they couldn't send the entire submarine upward. Someone would have to carry the signal device manually to a higher depth and activate it. The three men debated intensely, and finally Mitch volunteered. After years of experience, he knew exactly how dangerous this mission was and didn't expect to come back alive. He handed his letter, written for his family, to Angel, asking him to deliver it if he didn't return. Angel understood, but someone had to take the risk. Mitch, full of sorrow yet determined, suited up and prepared the signal device. Using a rope connected to the submarine, he began ascending. Once he reached a certain distance, he needed to switch on the device and release it toward the surface. But because of his thick diving gloves, he struggled to press the button. Frustrated and running out of time, Mitch removed his gloves so he could activate the device with his bare hands. He finally managed to get a grip, but before he could turn it on, he was surrounded by a swarm of deadly jellyfish. They stung his exposed hand repeatedly, sending waves of searing pain through him. The shock caused Mitch to drop the device for a moment, but retrieving it without activating it would be pointless. The signal had to be on. Despite the agony, he knew he had no choice but to push through. Despite the unbearable pain, Mitch somehow managed to press the button and release the device toward the surface, ensuring the Navy would finally locate their position. But the jellyfish had stung him so many times that he couldn't endure it anymore, and he died right there in the water. His body drifted away, and when Angel and Jones learned what happened, the tension between them exploded. Jones immediately tried to shut off Mitch's oxygen tank so he could use the remaining air for himself. Angel desperately tried to stop him, hoping they might still save Mitch, but Jones cut the oxygen supply anyway. Angel was shocked. Mitch had sacrificed his life to save them, and Jones didn't hesitate for a second to act selfishly. Angel's anger was written all over his face, but nothing could be undone now. At least the signaling device was on the surface, meaning the Navy would soon be able to detect them. However, they needed to act fast because their large oxygen cylinder was almost empty. The situation grew so hopeless that Angel and Jones even considered ending their lives before suffocating. But moments later, a message came from the Navy. They had received the signal, and the device had surfaced above them. The problem was that debris from the destroyed ship was blocking the way, preventing the Navy from diving deeper. This meant Angel and Jones needed to rise closer to the surface themselves. They decided to drop some of the submarine's weight so it would become lighter and naturally ascend. It was extremely risky, but they had no other choice. They quickly executed the plan, and the submarine began to rise. For a while, everything seemed to work, But soon they realized the sub was tangled in multiple wires from the destroyed ship above. Moving forward became impossible, the wires were too thick to break. Angel looked at the situation and said firmly that there was only one option left: they would have to leave the submarine and swim upward on their own, no matter what it cost. With only one diving suit left, neither of them knew who should risk going to the surface. Jones feared Angel might attack him for it, maybe even kill him, so he braced himself for a fight. But before Jones could react, Angel calmly told him to take the suit and go. Jones froze in disbelief. He warned Angel that if he went up alone, Angel would die for sure. But Angel simply revealed the truth: he had no one left. His entire family had died in a car crash, and to this day, he blamed himself because he was the one driving. Jones, on the other hand, had just gotten married and still had a whole life waiting for him. That's why Angel made the decision for him. Jones reluctantly suited up and began his ascent while Angel guided him through every step to avoid mistakes. But moving from extreme deep water pressure to lighter pressure was brutal. Jones's lungs were collapsing, and at one point, panic completely took over. Meanwhile, water had begun flooding the submarine, leaving Angel with very little time of his own. In desperation, Jones tore off his helmet and swam upward, gasping for air. Blood spilled from his mouth, his tissues were tearing from the pressure, but he pushed through anyway. Against all odds, he reached the surface. Navy rescuers immediately pulled him out and radioed back that Jones had been found. Hearing this, Angel finally felt some relief. He pulled out a small keepsake of his wife, held it close, and accepted his fate. As a final attempt, he tried to escape the sinking sub without a suit, but it was impossible. His breath faded, his strength vanished, and Angel sank quietly into the dark water. At least Jones survived and was reunited with his wife. He knew that his life was saved only because of the sacrifices of the men he had been trapped with. And with that, the story comes to an end.